Hi, this is Professor Gold. What we're going to do in this introductory video is briefly touch on a couple of preliminary concepts related to the field of finance and do a brief exercise that I think you'll find interesting. In the next video, we'll be going over chapter 1 of the textbook and some of the key lessons from that chapter. What I'd like you to do right now is get out a piece of paper and pause the video and then write down the numbers 1 through 5 as you see here on your screen on that piece of paper. So pause the video, go get a piece of paper, and write the numbers 1 through 5. We'll be using this piece of paper later on in this presentation. Okay, I assume you have the piece of paper in front of you at this point, so we'll proceed. I've already covered the syllabus at length in a series of videos that you have been able to watch that have gone over all of the details of what's expected of you, what you can expect to get out of the course, and of course what your to-do list is for the first week of class. Here's a copy of the textbook cover. In addition to registering with My Finance Lab, which is the Pearson online quiz testing service that we're using for this course, you also need to register for the Stock Market Challenge, and there's videos that cover all of that stuff, plus instructions in the syllabus. One thing I didn't mention in the previous videos is that you are required to get a financial calculator. My recommendation is the Texas Instruments BA2 Plus financial calculator, as you see here. There's a lot of instructions for use of this calculator in the textbook, and there's a lot of videos on YouTube to help you see how to solve different finance calculations if you're having any difficulty with that. This again is the grading metric. There's two semester exams, one about midpoint through the semester and then one at the end of the semester. There's weekly chapter homework and quizzes that you'll take each week through the Finance Lab. There's the Stock Market Challenge, an on-campus speaker series that we have here on the Dale Mabry campus. And if you're unable to attend those speaking events, and there's 4 of them and the dates are in the syllabus, you need to contact me by January 16th to set up an appointment so we can provide you with an alternative assignment. There's also weekly check-in assignments on Blackboard. So each week you'll be taking a quiz, doing a homework assignment on My Finance Lab, working on your Stock Market Challenge, possibly attending a campus workshop series event, and doing weekly check-in assignments on Blackboard. The check-in assignments are designed to reinforce some of the concepts from the different chapters. So let's get started. What exactly is finance? You know, textbooks are really good at giving you different definitions. Here's a couple. The study of how investors allocate their assets over time under conditions of certainty and uncertainty. Another definition. Finance is the process of estimating what something is worth. There's so many different definitions for finance. I think for me, what I think finance is really about is about valuing things. I think that's really what it gets down to. It's not about money. It's about how we go about valuing stuff. And some stuff is very, very difficult to value, and some stuff is easier to value. And you'll see a good example of that when we do our activity. There's a picture of me in case you've never met me. The question here is what is value rather, and how do we measure it? I think that value is basically how we perceive things to be, what the experience is that we're expecting to get out of something, the quality of that experience versus the cost of that particular asset. And typically, when we think the perceived quality is greater than the cost, well, there's value in it for us. For example, in this class, some of you may find this class to be of great value, and some of you may think it's not of great value. It doesn't mean the class is bad. It doesn't mean I'm a bad instructor or a good instructor. It just means that people value things differently. Value creation also has two very key components, and these are two components directly related to the field of finance. One is time, and the other is uncertainty. Of course, they're directly correlated with one another because the longer the period of time, the greater the degree of uncertainty that exists. For example, if you were to lend me, or if I were to borrow $1 from you today, and I agreed to pay you back tomorrow, the likelihood of me defaulting on that repayment is less likely than if I borrow $1 from you today and tell you I'll pay you back in 10 years. There's a lot of things that can happen in 10 years that might cause me to default on that $1 repayment. So uncertainty is something we all have to deal with. Uncertainty is things as basic as just leaving your house in the morning. Whenever we leave the house, it's an uncertain world out there. Lots of things can happen to us, and we deal with this on a regular basis throughout each and every day. Time, of course, is also an important component. Most of you in this class have a lot of time on your hands in terms of your lifetime. So that's an enormous advantage that you have, because time over a long period of years can reward you significantly in terms of compensation, but also in terms of investment growth. Here's Warren Buffett. He's a famous investor, legendary investor on Wall Street, owns a company called Berkshire Hathaway. And he says that price is what you pay, value is what you get. I think that's a good quote. I think it does pretty much sum up a lot of the stuff we've been talking about so far. So here we are at the exercise. So get your piece of paper out, pause the video if you haven't done this yet, and then return once you have the numbers 1 through 5 written down on the piece of paper. What we're going to do is I'm going to show you 5 different products, and when you see them, you're going to have 10 seconds to write down what you think the market price is for that particular asset. Doesn't mean that it's something you can afford. It doesn't mean it's something you'd like to own. But what do you think the market price is, the price out in the real world for that particular product? And as soon as you have that, write it down. If 10 seconds have elapsed and you haven't written anything down, we're moving on to the next one and just write some number down. So after I show you each item, we'll pause for 10 seconds, and then I'll bring you on to the next item. So here's item number 1. A 2013 Lexus GS. So think about what you think the market price for that automobile is and write that number down next to the number 1. Okay, so that's item number 1. Item number 2, a Babe Ruth baseball, the legendary baseball player, a signed baseball with his signature on it. What do you think the market price for that item is? Okay, that's the Babe Ruth baseball. Item number 3, 10 shares of Coca-Cola stock. So think about what you think 1 share of Coca-Cola stock costs, and then multiply that by 10, and whatever that number is, put that down next to the number 3 on your piece of paper. Okay, item 4, an apartment on Bayshore Boulevard in South Tampa in Ballast Point. It's a 3-bedroom apartment, almost 3,000 square feet. Looks like it has an amazing kitchen and view of the water. So think about that for 10 seconds and write down what you think the market price for that apartment is. Okay. And the last item, item number 5, is 2 years worth of tuition in the MBA program for an out-of-state student. So somebody who's not from Florida. What does it cost to get your MBA at the University of South Florida, St. Petersburg? What does that cost? Think about that and write a number down next to number 5. All right, so just to review, you should have next to number 1 the price for the 2013 Lexus GS. Product number 2, you should have a price or value down that you think the market bears for a Babe Ruth baseball signed by him. Price number 3, 10 shares of Coca-Cola stock. Product 4, an apartment down on Bayshore Boulevard. And 5 is the MBA degree tuition for an out-of-state resident at USF St. Petersburg. All right, so the Lexus is $48,000, so write that down next to what you put down. You might have gotten it correct or been way off, I'm not really sure. The Babe Ruth baseball put $20,000 down. Some of you might have put $10 million. Some of you might have put $100. Doesn't really matter if you're right or wrong. The point of this is to illustrate how we value things differently. Product 3, Coca-Cola stock is at $41.50 as of December 14th. So 10 shares of Coca-Cola stock would be worth $415. Product 4 was the apartment, $530,000. That was a listing on Trulia's website. And product 5, $42,000 for the MBA tuition. So, as you can tell by this activity, this little exercise, valuing things can be extremely subjective. The field of finance attempts to provide us with some level of objectivity and allows us to maybe look at things a little bit differently. But it should be clear and evident to you at this point that we all value things differently. We all have different perceptions of what things are worth. And in that lies both the art and challenge in the field of finance. And this should sort of set the ground for a lot of the things that we'll be exploring this semester. Again, in the next video, we'll dive into Chapter 1. And at that point, you will have completed Module 1 in terms of video support and activities.